But first, this week marks 1 year since Hurricane Helene hit western North Carolina, and we will be recalling stories from the devastating storm all week long. Good evening, I'm Sydney Moore, joined by Chad Silber, who is live in Asheville. Chad, western North Carolina probably looks a lot different a year later, but I'm sure the scars are still visible.
Oh yeah, Sydney, the work is still far from over, but they have made some great strides in the last year. Just driving up here today along the interstate, we did see some of the remnants of that damage, but it is nowhere near as bad as it has been the last couple of times we've come up here, which is obviously great news. As for the people who live here, they have had a long road to recovery over the past year. I met one man in Burnsville who is in that situation. He reflected on that day last September as he acclimates to his newly rebuilt home. The sounds of electric drills and hammers are common around Andy Buchanan's property in Burnsville.
Almost every day, if not every other day, there's some kind of work going on here to finish up.
Workers are wrapping up a months-long project to rebuild his home, partially destroyed by Hurricane Helene.
I had 2 walls and a roof is all I had left. It's looking good.
Getting to this point hasn't been easy for the lifelong Yancey County man. He had a bad feeling about the storm even before it hit.
2 days before the flood, I had actually made a social media post about how high the water was, and to pray for the people along the path of this hurricane.
The morning of the storm, he watched as the river behind his home started rising.
The water was up under the back deck, and that is as high as we'd ever seen it here.
That's when he knew it was time to get to his 2 kids who were staying at their mom's nearby, but it was impossible.
The road leading up to my kids' home, it was no longer there. It's just a valley of rocks and jagged pavement. And I'll never forget when I got out of the truck, I was going to walk through the mountains to get to my kids. I could hear boulders still tumbling out of these mountain valleys.
Fortunately, a neighbor confirmed his kids were fine and out of harm's way. Now it was time for him to get to safety, but the roads were deteriorating, so he was forced to abandon his truck and go on foot.
There's a big landslide in front of me. I had no business crawling through. It's full of power lines, trees, and it's a bad deal. I was having to find holes to maneuver through.
Then something he could have never imagined.
Once I stood up, that's when I saw a lady's body part. It floated and it hung, and it's right in front of me, and I wasn't ready for that.
With not many options left, he decided to go back to his house, or what was left of it.
As I come into this east side of the wall here, this wall's completely gone.
The rising river ripped away part of his home and nearly everything inside.
When this wall collapsed, there were 6 feet of water inside my building. When the wall falls, it's just like a vortex. It just sucks everything out with it.
He was left with almost nothing and no way to contact anyone.
No cell phones, no Wi-Fi, nothing. We were cut off from the world.
The following days and weeks came with lots of struggles.
I had no clue where to start. I had no clue what I could do.
Fortunately, a wave of nonprofits weren't far behind.
Next thing you know, they're getting my materials.
We helped with his roof and some flooring needs. We've helped with his gutters.
Whitney Daly works with Appalachian Disaster Coalition, a nonprofit that's teamed up with several others to help as many people as possible.
It's just been a beautiful symphony of organizations working together to get this man back in his home.
While Buchanan's story should be considered a success, there are plenty of others that are far from it. Just look at the building across the street.
There was a coffee shop that washed completely away. Oh, God. And then the post office that everyone used here as their post office actually was lifted off its foundation and washed down the river.
It also had a rental unit upstairs. Much of the building looks the same as it did the day after the storm.
It's a business first, residents second, so it's last on the list. Homes get mitigated first.
Daly says the elderly business owner is doing what she can to tackle the destruction on her own, but there's just too much.
There's just so many different layers to figuring out how to come back from this.
Back across the street,
It always starts with a little bit of hope.
Buchanan is getting used to his newly rebuilt home and thankful for all the groups that made it happen.
It's amazing what God can do with his people.
He's especially grateful for his kids' sake.
When they stayed the first night and I got to cook them a home-cooked meal, it was emotional. I was home. and I've never looked back.
Andy Buchanan has been so appreciative of the nonprofits that have helped him that he is now going to be volunteering with one of them to give back in a similar way. At the state level, Governor Josh Stein gave an update today on recovery out here. He says nearly all water systems are back online. It's the same story with roads. And all state parks impacted by Helene are partially or fully reopened, which is great news considering leaf peeping season is nearly upon us. We also learned tonight the U.S. Department of Transportation is giving the state more than $1 billion for road repairs. The feds say this is the largest relief funding for a state in the department's history. The Transportation Secretary says this reflects President Trump's commitment to not leaving any North Carolinians behind.